Saudi Arabia's agreement with the United States on pricing and selling oil in U.S. dollars, which created the term petrodollar in the 1970s, was a factor that contributed to the strength of this currency. But he is not the only one. If we go back a little, the American president, Richard Nixon, is tired of the consequences of linking the dollar to gold, and he made a divorce between the American currency and gold in 1971. This divorce has importance in the language of money. And around the world, there are 65 countries that link their local currencies to U.S. dollars, including Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Jordan, Qatar, and Oman. Returning to the first question, the meaning of the word dollar, it is the English version of the German word Taler, and the story started from the town of Yakimov in the Bohemia region, which is currently known as the Czech Republic. An exciting facts about the U.S. dollar, explaining the secret of the strength of this currency, which is expected to remain dominant over the world's economy, and a common language, which countries cannot understand financially without them. Although there are about 180 currencies around the world, a limited number of them are widely used in international transactions, which are on the throne of the U.S. dollar, and to the degree of lesser currencies such as the euro, Japanese yen, and the British pound, according to international data. The dollar dominates the global financial system and global trade, while it is likely that it continues to retain hegemony as a foreign reserve in different countries around the world, according to data published by a study of the International Monetary Fund. The structural transformations witnessed by the international monetary system have not affected the past decades on the American dollar hegemony, while the U.S. Treasury indicates that the dollar's share of reserves has still itself for 3 decades, and has remained higher than 50% of a total of foreign reserves around the world. The roots of the U.S. dollar dominance on the global financial system are due to the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, which was followed by the end of World War II, the emergence of the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. These institutions were born in July 1944 in the city of Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, in the United States, at the initiative of 44 countries to avoid a crisis similar to those that occurred in 1929, and assigned the International Monetary Fund at the time of the task of ensuring global financial stability, while the World Bank must work for reconstruction and development before it is devoted to lowering poverty. The Bretton Woods Agreement came to regulate global trade and achieve a kind of international financial stability, and then stipulated the American dollar's adoption as a major currency to determine the prices of the currencies of other countries, and the dollar was then linked to gold at the price of $35 per ounce. Jim Glassman, president of J.P. Morgan Chase, explains in an article that the dollar has become the cornerstone of the international banking system. He believes that the strength of the dollar in the past was led by the power of the American economy while making it the global reserve currency, but the accumulation of dollars abroad now comes as a result of commercial imbalances, and not because of confidence in the dollar, as he put it. It indicates that the strong dollar, despite its positives to the United States, but it makes consumers in developing countries unable to bear the cost of high-quality products imported from the United States, which makes the trade surplus tend to their favor often. The strength of the dollar is a problem of the assets involved in risks, economist and governors' strategies at New York Live Investments told Reuters. She added, due to the pivotal role that the dollar plays in the global financial system, its fluctuations have widespread repercussions. The Bank of International Settlements indicated in a report in November 2022 that the strength of the dollar usually creates an atmosphere of stressing in the global financial markets while reducing the appetite for risk and weakening global trade. It also increases the difficulty of serving religion for countries that borrowed in the American currency, and it is a problem that the economies of the emerging markets are often suffered. The role that the US dollar plays in the global economy has raised the ire of some countries. In the 1960s, the French finance minister, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, indicated that the dollar has a heavy privilege. The United States has many privileges due to the dollar, the most prominent of which is the American Treasury bonds, which are considered one of the most attractive debts for many countries that want to achieve returns by buying American debts, as China has billions of dollars from these debts. The NPR report indicates that one of the advantages of the dollar that Washington provides is the possibility of borrowing it. This means that if the United States reduces the value of the dollar, this means reducing the value of its debts, which America will not do, but it remains theoretically applicable. One of the advantages of the dollar's dominance of the global financial system is its strong use of punishing opponents, such as Iran and Russia, and for this Moscow has sought since the beginning of its war on Ukraine to sell its oil in Russian ruble away from the dollar. He wants to constantly having a strong dollar, especially since about the U.S. federal debt to the United States is $53 trillion, and a large part of it is owned by foreign investors, including competing countries such as China, and in the event of a decrease in the value of the dollar despite the gains that Washington will achieve, this necessarily means the value of the assets of these debts that foreign investors possess, which some call the trap of the dollar, decreased. In an article published by the International Monetary Fund, Brassad is likely that the dollar continues as an important backup currency even if its position is declined as a payment currency. Parsad explains that the superiority of the dollar gives the United States a great influence, as the majority of transactions are about the dollar, which supports the American banking system, not to mention the ability of U.S. financial and monetary policies to influence the rest of the world through the dollar value. Linking the currency is part of the monetary policy to the central bank's determination in the country of a fixed exchange rate for its currency in front of a foreign currency or a basket of foreign currencies with different weight. The policy of installation and linking to another currency such as Jordan, or to float the exchange rate and leave it vulnerable to volatility according to the factors of supply and demand, such as Egypt. The site refers to the presence of 65 countries around the world linking their currencies to the US dollar, including Arab countries that include Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Jordan, Qatar, Oman. Kuwait was linking its currency to the dollar until 2002 when it adjusted its monetary policy to link a currency basket according to the website of the Central Bank of Kuwait. Lebanon was linking its currency to the dollar, but after an economic crisis that struck the country in 2020, the governor of the central bank said, Riyad Salama, to Reuters in 2021 that the era of linking to dollars is over, noting that the currency float depends on negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. Countries usually link their currencies to stronger economies, which allows local companies to reach broader markets with lower risk. In modern history, the dollar was alongside the euro and gold, one of the most prominent options against countries to link national currencies. Among the most prominent positives of linking national currencies to dollars is the possibility of expanding their trade and enhancing their national income with stable levels, especially when the fluctuations in the exchange rate and customs tariffs are. At the same time, the process of linking the national currency to a foreign currency risk, as institutions that manage monetary policy must manage flows and avoid sudden increases in supply and demand for currency, which may sometimes require maintaining large reserves of foreign currencies. And if the national currency is linked to a very low exchange rate, the purchasing power of consumers will decrease in buying foreign goods, which reduces their consumption, affects their standard of living, and if a high price is linked, citizens may buy a lot of goods and raise the demand, and may create pressure on foreign currency reserves. Then I said that the currency is collapsed, according to Investubia. Because of the association of national currencies with dollars, these countries themselves will find a demand to raise interest rates due to the correlation of their currency in dollars, even if the economy is deteriorating or its other indicators do not need this, which happened with many countries that followed the American Federal in its successive increases in the interest rates in order to face inflation, which may be economic pressure on the various sectors by increasing borrowing costs. Which means slowing economic growth with the dangers of entering into stagnation, which the United States itself is trying to avoid. And if the bonding of the currency collapses, the revenues of the state may become more expensive, inflation rises, and the country faces difficulty in paying debts, and investors may lose their money in assets whose value is no longer worth in the local process, as happened with the Argentine peso in 2002. Another report indicates to Investubia that countries have various reasons for linking their currency to dollars. For example, most of the Caribbean island countries link their currency to dollars because their main income source depends on tourism paid to dollars, and this link makes its economies more stable and less volatile. Senior experts of the LBL Financial Group, Queen's Crossby, said that the US dollar finds itself again at an important crossroads. While the Federal Reserve is still based on data, the dollar's path is also still focused on inflation and response to the monetary policies of the Federal Reserve. An analysis of the Paybarden Policy Center indicates that the future of the dollar in the short term will be linked to several factors, the most important of which is how to deal with Congress with the issue of raising the roof of the debt to the United States. Its financial obligations next summer, and this may lead to a catastrophic reduction in the credit rating of the United States, which may cause investors to sell their American assets and switch to safer currencies. Treasury Secretary Janet followed to CNN last January that if the United States fails to pay its obligations, this will undermine the role of the dollar as a backup currency used in commercial transactions around the world, and many Americans will lose their jobs and the costs of borrowing will rise. An analysis published by the Caring website confirms that the dollar is the most used currency in international trade, and it is difficult for other countries to China or Russia to repeat or reproduce the dollar experience, especially as it is directly related to the U.S. economy that has the deepest and most flexible financial markets. It is noteworthy that the dollar stops being a dominant currency that requires specific measures of American policy makers to reduce the ability of foreigners to use the American financial market as absorbed by the imbalances of global savings. He added that despite the benefit of the United States of this domination, it comes with responsibility and burdens on the American economy to preserve the strong dollar. For the United States, the strength of the dollar makes exports less competitive as it affects the profits of multinational companies as it raises the cost of transferring its profits in foreign currencies to the dollar, according to Reuters. The analysis confirms that the world is now using the dollar as if it is using a common language, and in the event that it is abandoned, it may be good for the world economy, but it will create structural defects in trade, and push deep changes in the global economy that are politically disturbing to many countries. During the corona pandemic, fears of the dollar's decline as a dominant currency appeared, as experts fear the motivational spending of the American government and the height of the debt ceiling, but this does not prevent it from continuing it as a more attractive currency, especially in light of the lack of reliable alternatives. It is expected that the dollar will not be overcome as a global backup currency anytime soon, but there are factors that may affect this matter, including expansion of U.S. sanctions, and the dwindling global leadership of the United States, according to a previous report of The Economist. In 2020, a study of the International Monetary Fund confirmed that there are no indications of significant changes in the formation of reserve currencies for central banks. There is a dense atmosphere of uncertainty that are surrounded by economic and financial trends around the world. She added that the central banks may reconsider the formation of reserves and how they possess them in the future, especially in light of the emergence of advanced technical platforms used by digital currencies, but it is expected that the dollar maintains its dominance as a currency of foreign reserves.